Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Um, Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that gender equity in media society operates on the ancestral, unceded, stolen, and occupied territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. On behalf of GEM staff and the board, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Indigenous custodians of these lands and pay our respects to their ancestors. We are grateful for the teachings they provide, the patience that they exercise, and the opportunities they provide us to share and engage with their art and culture. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning from, what you do in the industry, if you're from the Indigenous community. My name is Anna. I use she, her pronouns. My ethnicity is Vietnamese, but I grew up on Vancouver Island before settling in the place we call Vancouver. I work as the programming coordinator at Gender Equity in Media Society, which is a member-based organization committed to advancing gender equity in film and television. You can support us by spreading the word about what we do, becoming a member, making a donation, attending events like this, attending our film festival, and following us on our socials. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end, so you can either type them in the chat or raise your hand, and we will get to them if there's time remaining. Today, we are honored to host CBC's Environmental Sustainability Lead, Elsa Tokunaga, and Tiffany Wice, the Associate Producer with the CBC Creator Network. I would also like to welcome our moderator, Smiely Khurana. I'll let Smiely introduce herself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm really grateful to be here with you all today. My name is Smiely Khurana. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the founder and CEO of the Sustainable Act, which is a creative agency that provides sustainable consulting and media production for the creative industries. I'm honored to be joining you from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, which otherwise known as Vancouver, BC, and super deeply grateful to our Indigenous communities for their leadership, stewardship, and teachings. And I'm actually tuning in from the production office of Virgin River, the Netflix show. I'm just visiting their set today, and they kindly gave me their office space, so that's where I am today. And I've been fortunate to wear a few different hats over the years, from working on set as a sustainability coordinator to also serving as the inaugural lead as for Real Green at Creative BC, and worked at the BC Film Commission and collaborated a lot with CBC over the years. And I also host a podcast, which is called The Sustainable Act with Smiely Khurana. In this podcast, we've been able to feature global leaders in both sustainable production, but other climate and climate action areas as well. And yeah, I'm just super passionate about the power of media, about the power of storytelling. And so I'm so excited for this conversation today because how we tell stories and how we make them deeply matters for a sustainable future. So delighted and honored to be sharing space with Elsa and Tiffany. And together, I think we're going to be exploring how CBC is leading the way in sustainable production, the role of green storytelling, and what it really takes for industry-wide change. Elsa and Tiffany, I would love to start by asking you to introduce yourselves.
Okay, thanks so much, Smiley. So thanks also to GEMS Vancouver and Anna for hosting us today. And I'm so glad for all of you folks that tuned in to hear about sustainability in the industry. So I'm Elsa Tokunaga, as Anna mentioned. I'm working as CBC English Services Environmental Sustainability Lead. I'm sure we'll get more into that, what that actually means, but in a nutshell, I support CBC Productions in developing their sustainable strategies. So this includes the adoption of greener production practices behind the screen, green storytelling on screen, and any other strategies that can help advance sustainable decision-making. So if any listeners out there are productions that are affiliated with the CBC, please know that I exist. I'm here to help you measure and reduce your environmental impact. So I'll pass it over to Tiffany.
Awesome. Thanks, Elsa. Hi everyone, I'm Tiffany. My friends all just call me Tiff, which is why my screen name there is Tiff. Yeah, I use she, her pronouns, and I'm based out of Toronto, currently working on my home office. Um, yeah, I'm an associate producer with the CBC Creator Network team, as that was said. I'm a part of the national team, and I'm going to be talking a lot today about a initiative we did recently called Sprouting Seeds of Change, which was some really fun creator content we got to do around sustainability and climate storytelling. So I'm excited to get into it all. Excited to be here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. I would love to start this conversation by starting with your journey. What first drew you to sustainability within the screen industry, and how has that passion evolved through your work at CBC? Feel free, whoever wants to jump in first.
So I can go first. So I've had maybe a bit of a unique journey in that I've been interested and passionate about sustainability and environmental change for my entire life. But I've really only entered the film industry in the last 3 to 4 years. Just kind of was in the right place at the right time. So my educational and entire career background have to do with sustainability. I think that there's pros and cons in that. One of the pros is that I questioned everything that people did on set. Why are we doing it this way? Isn't there a more environmentally friendly way? And the con is the same. I questioned everything that was done on set. So sometimes that backfired on me, but sometimes it allowed us to explore new avenues to do different environmental actions. So, like I said, I always wanted to make a difference in the way that we see the world. And I started off 3 or 4 years ago as the sustainability lead on This Hour Has 22 Minutes. And just a quick little story from when I was little. So I never truly thought that I would be in this industry, but I always had a personal interest in film. I remember when I was 10 or so, and I asked my mom to help me write a letter addressed to Hollywood. It was Dear Hollywood. I wrote that I was hoping that they'd be able to show more environmentally friendly themes in their content. I wanted them to show actors on screen that were using a reusable water bottle or a thermos instead of showing plastic and single-use cups on screen. I didn't get a response, but I'm hoping that, now the film industry is open to listening, which they are. And not sure if Hollywood's out there and wants to respond to my letter now, but that's kind of my journey.
I love that story. That's so cute. Amazing. We were joking the other day, Elsa and I, that we have kind of like opposite stories in a sense, in that I have been interested in filmmaking and storytelling like for as long as I can remember. I don't have a fun anecdote about that from childhood, but I was one of those kids who was just always making movies, always making, content with my friends, started, putting stuff out on social media. Um, and yeah, I was always interested and curious about sustainability and climate change, but it wasn't until maybe more recently working at the CBC and seeing just being thrust into this place where there's so many incredible things happening. And then, of course, getting to spearhead this new initiative, Sprouting Seeds of Change. I should say too, I mean, my job at CBC is working with the Creator Network team. I like to always define what that means because it is kind of a varied, interesting department, but basically we work with external video creators outside of not from the CBC. Anyone doing interesting video stuff around Canada, we work with them to create video content for all kinds of digital platforms at the CBC. And I found myself in my current role as a producer with that team by starting as a creator actually and pitching the Creator Network team. So I come from like the creator filmmaking side, and yeah, I kind of found sustainability and green storytelling a little bit later. So I like to say I'm kind of on my learning journey still with sustainability, and just really excited to get excited about it with people and chat about it. So yeah.
Thank you, Tiff. Thank you, Elsa. I love hearing your stories and backgrounds because it always reminds me of like where I started and how I started as well. I can relate to both of your journeys. I also come from like a very creative background and started out creating and then starting to question some of the like, you know, the ways that we are making content and films, and that led me to like being here as well. And I think what you said about being on your learning journey, I think that's a really important thing to share, that I think we're all learning and we'll all continue to be learning as we evolve, and anyone listening that's interested in like adopting more sustainability practices into the productions, to like not worry about being perfect, because we're all learning and we're all figuring it out. So thank you for sharing that. um, and it sounds like you both worked across different genres and formats. So I'm curious, what unique sustainability challenges or opportunities have you noticed between these different genres and formats?
I mean, I think physically on set, you know, having a production that films mostly in studio allows for quite a few opportunities. So you can, you know, store a lot more of your materials for future season use. You can, like, we got busing stations for the cast and crew members to use instead of having to use compostable dishware. So these kinds of things, you don't have to use diesel generators as much. So I think it can often be a little bit simpler to enact sustainable change when you're more so filming in studio. Locations, of course, it can be challenging. There are many things that can be done in any sort of production space. To do with the genres, I think that a lot of the perception is often that climate storytelling and climate messaging is educational and so belongs in kids programming or documentaries, that those kinds of spaces. But you know, comedy is often one of the best ways to get messaging across and for people to hold on to that information. So I think that there's a huge opportunity there for any of our comedy productions, and drama, it evokes so much motion, which again is a really great medium to share knowledge and for the audiences to hold that knowledge as well. So there's so many opportunities, and I think that it's really important that we, and this is one of my roles, is to change that perception that climate change is only educational. You know, we can integrate it into any sort of story. Yeah.
Well put. I don't know if I have much more to add there, but other than the idea that even working across different genres, different types of storytelling, all different kinds of things, the thing I've seen across the board in my career is that, yeah, it always sustainability has this feeling that like it's homework, like it has to be a certain kind of thing, like Elsa was saying. So yeah, I think the opportunity there is really exciting to I don't know, open that up a bit and do new things. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you brought in sort of different aspects, like from kind of storytelling and what you're showing on screen versus also like behind the scenes, like generators. Like that's not something we really see as like you know, people watching content, but that's a huge aspect to like making a production more greener and having those alternatives. So yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that was a little teaser to probably the rest of our conversations. Like there's so many different opportunities for us to look at systemic change, both on screen and off screen, and from the broadcaster side, but also from like the crew side. And yeah, and that I think maybe is a nice segue into talking a little bit about the Seeds of Change event, which I know is a big reason why we're here, because it's we're I think a week out almost. It's on Earth Day. I would love to talk a little bit about Seeds of Change. It's such a powerful name. What are the core ideas or calls to action behind this event, and what kind of ripple effect are you hoping it will have across the industry? And maybe even before you get into that, maybe for those that aren't familiar with Seeds of Change, are you able to maybe give a little rundown, elevator pitch to what the event is?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the question and for bringing Seeds of Change into the conversation. So it's a webinar. We're now in our third year, and it's a webinar that celebrates, recognizes, and tries to teach the audience about sustainable change in the industry. It's pretty Canadian focused, but we do have a few speakers this year from the UK and the US. So we created this webinar 3 years ago for a few reasons. One, to demonstrate the work that individuals and organizations are doing in this industry to progress sustainability, to build hope and empowerment in this work, letting others know that other people exist, because this work can often feel quite isolating. And overall, the call to action is to integrate more sustainable practices behind the scenes and on screen. So Seeds of Change is, like I said, it's a space to not just celebrate what each of the panelists have been doing, but also, trying to get the audience to maybe reach out to some of the panelists, or trying to get the audience to be able to take some of those ideas that the panelists are sharing and put it into their own productions, again, whether on screen or off screen. We're really hoping for trickling effects from Seeds of Change. So again, just empowerment is so important in this movement. So really hoping that the audience will feel that desire to get involved in the sustainability movement in the industry by hearing from the amazing panelists that we have and the organizations that have already implemented these practices. So this year, we're really focusing on green storytelling, which I think is also what this talk is kind of focusing on. It's just so important, something that I always like to think is when I'm working on an individual production, or when I worked on an individual production, I don't so much do that anymore with this position at CBC. I only had the ability to influence those other people that were working on the production. So whether it was the 20 people I was working with or 150 people. And while that's still important, it's not quite as impactful as what the stories on screen can have. You have access to hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that's incredible and really important to keep in mind.
So Tiff, did you want to add anything?
No, other than to say, make sure you go check it out if you're not. It's one of my favorite things that happens each year. I'm not involved in like the planning of the overall event, but it's so cool. I'm sorry, I'm gonna nerd out about Seeds of Change, but yeah, definitely check it out. I can talk a little bit about Karishma, who will be speaking at the event. She's one of the creators we worked with. She made a project with us, and she's coming in to share. She has a short presentation around talking about climate activism and social media, which is a really interesting topic that she's really like well placed to talk about. Yeah, she's incredible, and like even if you just go and check out that alone, I hope that will be worth it. But the whole thing, it's this whole broad conversation of some really cool things happening in the space right now. So
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's really capturing that it's not just exclusively like talking about film production, but all sort of like forms of media, it sounds like, and kind of like something for everyone to engage in or tune into, depending on interest. So and I think it's free for anyone to attend, is that right? Yeah,
Yes.
so I think that will be linked somewhere, maybe by GemFest, for anyone interested. So yeah, I'd love to dive a little bit into some of the other CBC initiatives that have been spearheaded, like Green Frame and the Canadian Broadcasters for Sustainability. I think it's a coalition. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of collaboration and alignment that has that, like, sort of brought, and what's required across the industry?
Yeah, so I'll just give a little bit of background information in terms of the amount of members for each of them. So in Green Frame, there's 15 members, so 15 different funding bodies for production in Canada. And Canadian Broadcasters for Sustainability, there's 22 organizations. So even just saying those numbers, I think that when I found out how many organizations were within each of these coalitions, it was very surprising to me that CBC was able to rally so many broad organizations across Canada to come together for the goal to progress sustainability within the industry with the tools that each broadcaster or funder had. I think that, so my supervisor, Lisa Clarkson, really spearheaded both of these coalitions. And just watching from the sidelines and being vaguely a part of it, it's a lot of collaboration and alignment, as you say, to herd these organizations, but it's so incredible that each one signed on. I think CB for Canadian Broadcasters for Sustainability is the largest, it's the first time that Canadian broadcasters have signed on to a common goal. So that in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. And so we're trying to just, we've got each of them to create a sustainability plan. We're putting something together for Earth Day to share our Earth Day programming, just to show this cohesiveness and the desire to, again, progress sustainability in the industry. So it's been a lot, but it's been really worthwhile, I think. And it starts these different conversations between these organizations. So it's not just externally facing benefits, but also I've made connections with different broadcasters, different funders, and we can all help each other out quite a lot. Like I said, oftentimes this work can feel a little isolating. So just having that support network is really crucial.
Thanks, Elsa. I also want to just take a quick second to let those that are viewing this panel, if you wanted to introduce yourself in the chat, and also like what you do for work, maybe if you work in the industry, what your background is, kind of gives us an idea of like who our audience is as well. There's a lot of, I think, topics I really want to go into, but I know we're limited for time. But I think I'm going to go into the climate storytelling aspect, because I'm, like myself, so curious and passionate about the form of storytelling. That's what I do a lot with the Sustainable Act now. Previously at Real Green, we started to have a lot of conversations around representation on screen, and I know that CBC is starting to spearhead a lot of these initiatives and bring in like partners and collaborations with other organizations. So would love to talk a little bit about the importance of green storytelling. How are you approaching embedding sustainability into the stories we tell without it feeling forced?
So I'm so happy that we got to this question. So thank you for asking it, making sure that it got included. So I kind of touched on that briefly at the beginning, just the idea that I feel like there's this huge misconception that embedding sustainability into stories is, like either educational or has some sort of political objective. There's some sort of misconception happening, and I think it's not only in this industry; it's everywhere. So I really like to talk about either my own life or invite you to think about your own life in how climate change has affected you, and how environment has been integrated into your own lives. I think that it's the Good Energy Playbook, if any of you have heard of this. It's an organization that tries to inspire filmmakers to create sustainable storytelling or embed sustainability into their stories. And they like to say that anything that doesn't have sustainability in their stories is science fiction. And I've really latched on to that idea because I think it's really fantastic and puts it into perspective. We're living in the climate crisis right now. If you think about any stories, like I'm struggling to get home insurance because of these insurers aren't wanting to insure homes anymore because of the increasing frequency of natural disasters. To feeling eco-anxious all the time, to many conversations that I have with my friends and family and community members about the climate crisis. You don't see these things too much on screen, but they're happening all around us all the time, even within our own lives. So I like to invite people to ask themselves the question if they've been affected by the climate crisis. And again, this can be either physically or mentally, emotionally. And then if you have been, then why haven't these stories of ourselves in real time, why aren't they reflected back to us? Why aren't we talking about them at all? So I really appreciate you asking that question, because I think it's really important to reframe that idea of sustainability being forced as an agenda into these stories, if that makes any sense.
Tiff,
I'm
did you want?
also, yeah, I mean, this is one of those subjects, yeah, I could probably talk on and on about, so I'll try and keep it short. But yeah, very well put, Elsa. I mean, the stuff around, mainly I think about scripted content, and like seeing, I like to think of it as like modeling behavior and bringing up topics in a way that people can engage with. Again, I don't do that as much in my CBC position, but I just love seeing that kind of thing, because as we've kind of all touched on multiple times, modeling and yeah, broaching certain topics in a certain way, even the smallest things, I would say, can have a really big impact. Elsa was putting it well too. Like, it's one thing to, you know, be doing what you can, but media can touch so many different people's like lives. So it's this really interesting. I don't know. It's a tool, and I'll say, as far as my job, most of the stuff I do is more on the unscripted side, which, as we've talked about too, most people, when they hear that, if you're making sustainability content in unscripted, oh, it's homework, oh, it's like documentary, maybe even you get some eye rolls. I definitely saw some of that at the start. But especially for the initiative we were tackling, my team, the Sprouting Seeds of Change, taking these climate topics, talking about them in a way that's feels like you're hitting the topic in an informative way in 1 minute. It was a real challenge. So we've been talking about this loads, like how to make it feel informative but not like homework. And the thing I think I've taken away most from this process is the authenticity of it. And I have the benefit of getting to work with the creators, with these people who are already really passionate about it. So that's the main thing. I wanted to support and lift up that passion as much as we could. I imagine it's the same across all different kinds of content and your role out there, helping other people like infuse their content with these kind of messages when they can, when it feels authentic and real to whatever it is you're making. So that's my long rambly answer to that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to ask, like, and no pressure to answer this, but have you seen any success stories with, where storytelling directly influenced public or industry behavior, or maybe like, some, if you've worked with anyone directly or just overall trend wise, throwing that out there, but no pressure if that's too big of a
I mean, I
question.
can just jump in and quickly say that we saw a lot of success with this Sprouting Seeds of Change initiative, which I mean, it often is just someone like leaving a comment like, oh, I never thought of it this way. This is so interesting. And that just makes me so happy to see, because each of those comments represents maybe however many viewers out there. I think we counted up all the different views we got from this initiative. It was like hundreds of thousands of people just with this, organic creator content. Yeah, it's hard to measure that, of course, like how that goes off. And also, you were mentioning like the ripple effect earlier. I really love that it's starting these conversations, this kind of content that my team's working on. Yeah, and I'll just add too, I mean, the CBC really like prioritizes like green storytelling and sustainability. Obviously, we're talking about it a lot. But often, as we've all seen in the film industry and TV, all these kinds of things, people are often moving so fast. They're so in their silo that it can be hard to kind of talk about and get buy-in from even people here at the CBC sometimes in a way. So it was really cool to work on this project in particular and see that buy-in, like hear people asking questions like, oh, tell me about this that went up last week. We were seeing a lot of like people getting excited to be making this kind of content, which again, just really cool to be seeing that ripple effect kind of in action in our own small way. So yeah, Elsa, I'm curious if you have anything to call out for this, because yeah, you do some bigger things, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to also again give a shout out to you, Tiffany, because again, I come from a sustainability background, but these kinds of sprouting seeds of change initiatives, or other initiatives like this, um, allow allow other people to come into the conversation and to be thinking about these kinds of things. And I love seeing how excited you are, about the engagement that you're getting. I think it's really inspirational, and I mean, you can see from my face, I'm very excited. The more people that we get on board, with every initiative that goes on. I also just quickly, before I get into specific examples, just quickly want to say a single sentence that I I think it's important to acknowledge that sustainable or climate change storytelling doesn't mean that your story is about the climate crisis. It doesn't need to be about the environment. It just needs to have, an action that is environmentally friendly. We can have people riding the bus to work and not just because of their socioeconomic background, because it's something that they want to do. These they can have someone bringing in their water bottle, instead of buying plastic water bottles. So I just thought of that now and just really wanted to say it. So I know I got a bit off track there, but I think it's really important to share. So in terms of examples, some of my favorite examples are, you know, everyone has heard of the day after tomorrow and how it helped increase awareness on climate change. That's a classic one. It's not a documentary. It's like a drama, comedy, or dark humor. I'm not entirely sure the exact genre, but it's not a documentary. Another one, Blackfish, about the orcas in SeaWorld. After that was released, it caused the share price of SeaWorld to drop from $39 to $18. So again, that's a documentary. One of my other favorite examples is from Superstore. It's a sitcom. I don't know if people have heard of it, but one of the main characters is named Mateo, and he's a Filipino immigrant. And sharing his story as one of the main plots in Superstore. Again, it's a sitcom. Someone did a study about this, and it caused so exposure to immigration storylines were greatly associated with more inclusive attitudes towards immigrants and a greater likelihood of taking immigrant-related action. This is in the States, but I just think it's a really good example. Even though it's not to do with the climate crisis, it's still, we can change opinions about so many things in this industry. And so that's why I like to share this example. It's not just about the climate crisis. It's important to remember how much power in this industry we have.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think like that is like a really key takeaway for probably this whole conversation, is that it's these little things that really add up, and you can see a cultural shift when it comes to how we're viewing the world through like the media we consume and what we're seeing on screen. And so appreciate you sharing. And I know we also want to keep some room for questions, so please feel free, as those that are watching, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. You can also send it to Gems Vancouver in the chat as well. And so we'll make sure that there's time at the end for those questions. And so I just want to quickly shine a little bit light on or a little bit focus on like the smaller independent productions and like the lower budget productions. I know CBC works with a lot of independent producers, and for those that are listening, or even after this panel is shared, if anyone that is identifying themselves as an independent producer with a small limited budget, what are some tips or advice can you share for those producers and cast and crew, like literally anyone on a production, to make more meaningful change and bring more sustainability, and you know even regarding like costs, like there's a myth that being sustainable costs more money. What can you share for those folks?
So in terms of sustainable change, again, the whole theme is green storytelling. I think this falls under that too, of the importance of talking about it, within your cast and crew, so within your production. I find one of the most impactful actions that we take on productions, and again, this is when I was working on individual productions, so I worked on some smaller ones as well, is sending out a green memo. So sharing your production's green environmental intentions, I think really gets the cast and crew on board and understanding what the production is about in terms of sustainability. It also brings the individuals into the conversation. Some of the best changes that I saw were the ones that were suggested by the cast and crew members. All I did was ask them the question of, hey, we're trying to make production more sustainable. Is there anything that you think that you and or your department can do to contribute towards this goal? And of course, anticipated, I got some eye rolls, but I got a lot of engagement as well. And each individual knows their job way better than I do. And they know the differences that they can make and their department can make. And so that was something that was really exciting for me to realize, and also to enact, that a lot of people are excited and want to be making change and have a lot of really good ideas. Again, some of them need to be empowered, and just engaged with. So that was a really impactful couple months for me, and a realization for me. Some of the smaller ones, it's really easy to just buy 48 plastic water bottles for the day. Especially, let's say you're only filming for 4 days. I don't want to do the math right now. It'd be embarrassing. Okay, around 200 water bottles for the 4 days. So it's pretty easy to just say that's not a big impact. And it's true, it's not a huge impact. But on one of these productions, we actually introduced those big plastic water jugs, the refillable ones, instead of the plastic water bottles, and encouraged people to bring in their own reusable bottles. And I think that, again, that starts the gears churning in these individuals, and perhaps what they learned on that production, and how easy it was to make that switch from plastic water bottles to reusable water bottles, they can introduce to another production. So it does not matter how small the change is. It's any sort of change helps increase the momentum towards building a more sustainable industry. In terms of cost, meat is really expensive. So if you find any way to go vegetarian, or to reduce the amount of meat that your cast and crew consume, that's a really good one. Encouraging bicycle use or carpooling, that's a great one too. I think that encouraging rather than mandating is a big one as well. It gets more people on board to want to do these actions, instead of grumbling and feeling forced that they need to do it.
Wow, how do I follow that? That was a great answer to that prompt, but I love all of that. It was so great. I'll say, I guess, you highlighted the communication. That was probably the first thing that came to mind for me, is kind of establishing as best as you can, especially I'm thinking like really small budget. That's kind of where my career has been, in like micro budgets. If you can at least, communicate that with your team, and yeah, maybe you won't get everyone excited, but if you can get those few handful of people who can get excited with you, and as Elsa said, folks tend to be experts in their spot, and they might know something that you don't. So that's a really great tip. I'm definitely going to take that with me, and continue doing that as much as I can. But I guess I'll add to this. The thing I think is interesting, you can't really fix a problem if you're not aware of it. So what I would say is that even if you're micro budget and you're trying your best with these things, I really would kind of prompt people to track and like be aware of their carbon footprint. Even if you aren't able to fix things, I know how hard it can be, especially on like these really small budgets to take certain changes. Some things are easier than others, I guess. But yeah, if you are tracking and being aware, I guess I'll just say that as you progress in your career and your budgets maybe do get bigger, that's obviously something, you know, a lot of big production companies and organizations are looking at now. So I like to see when filmmakers or creators come in like already thinking about that kind of thing. To me, that's a mark of professionalism, I guess. So that's my piece on that. And I'll just say, as far as the cost element, a quick plug to two of the pieces we made for Sprouting Seeds of Change. We did pieces around food waste. Which I found really, obviously, we all know food waste is not a good thing, but to really dive into it, again, look at the numbers and be aware of how much we're wasting. I found that really fascinating to dive into with that creator, and maybe not as related to production, but if you check out Karishma Climate Girl, that's her handle. She'll be speaking at the Seeds of Change event, like I mentioned. She did a really interesting piece on fast furniture, which I thought was really got me thinking about, yeah, the furniture we're buying, which I don't know, maybe you're doing production design and you can think about what kind of items you're using. But yeah, I hope that answers the question there.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great nuggets of wisdom that you both have shared, and I don't know if there's a way for us to like even get all these like ideas and tips and like consolidate it into like some kind of resource. But I think that's what the seeds of a change event is really going to be, is dissecting more into these different solutions. And I also wanted to add, I think like what you brought up, both of you brought up around communications and sort of like setting the scene, setting the bar in your production is so crucial, because when you're able to empower those that are leading these different departments and roles, I think you'll see a lot more change, and that ripple effect that Elsa also mentioned before too. And so I would say like definitely that's like a great place to start, but also like creating a plan. Like, what do you want to accomplish, and not feel so defeated if you can't do every single thing, because not like even the like largest like budget productions are not able to do every single thing, which is something that we have to just like navigate and figure out and accept as well. So having a plan with like your key goals, I think it's a good place to start as well. So then you can monitor your progress and see what you were able to accomplish and what more you could do. So a lot of good nuggets of wisdom here. So thank you for sharing. And I'm gonna wrap up our conversation with my closing question, which is it's a fairly big question. Before we get into the audience Q&A. So instilling change, especially within large systems, it's never easy. What has been some of the biggest hurdles in this work, and what keeps you going?
Yeah, that's a big question. And yeah, again, thanks for asking it. I totally agree. Instilling change is incredibly challenging. I kind of want to talk about both instilling change on a large scale and on a small scale, because I find them challenging in both equally as challenging, but kind of in their own ways. So at CBC, this position that I have at CBC, I see these changes on more of a large scale. So I interact with our productions across Canada and see ways where we can, as an industry, take sustainability farther. And that is slow, as I'm sure everyone is familiar with in any sort of change making actions. It's slower than anyone would like it to be. On an individual level, that's also quite challenging. And I'll share a quick story. Because again, I think storytelling is the best way for people to absorb and keep that information. So when I was working on a production a couple years ago, I had one of my colleagues tell me that she believes in climate change, but she didn't have any kids and she was older, so she didn't really care what the world looked like in 30 to 40 years. And that was a shocking conversation for me to find myself in. I wasn't entirely sure how to respond. But she also was a great professional and really good at her job. And so she knew that I was hired to do something and really wanted to help me succeed in my work. So throughout that production, she ended up being one of my biggest allies. And again, because of her professionalism. By the end of that production, though, she didn't say outright that she had experienced a mindset shift. But I saw her start to bring her reusable water bottle in. I started to see her. I saw her start to bring her reusable Tupperware in for meals instead of using the takeaway compostable containers. I saw her volunteer to donate some of the leftover food. I really think that, again, but this was, we were working together almost every day for a period of a couple months. But she started off on kind of an extreme side of things. But with understanding and empathy and kind of meeting each other where we were at, she was able to shift her mindset into more sustainable thinking and understand the importance of it. And I'll never forget this person. She was incredibly impactful in the work that I like to do. Because again, I've never had that kind of conversation before in my life. So yeah, to wrap up that question, change is incredibly hard to instill. It's important to approach it from both big scale, big system change and individual change. Individuals, because the more people that we have on our side working towards the same goals, building a more sustainable industry, the faster we will see big systems change.
Nice. Wow. Not sure if I have too much more to add on to that. That was really well said. I guess I'll just finish and I'll echo what I was saying earlier, that like following the passion and the authenticity where you can, because yes, it can be really hard and difficult and slow to make these changes. And as Elsa said earlier, just never feeling like you never want to feel like you're forcing something on someone. It's all about like modeling behaviors and talking about it and starting these conversations. So to me, that as for following our authenticity, that's I found the most success there. And at least whether it's changing mindsets or not, like starting these conversations and meeting each other at the table and talking about it in a productive way. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I loved everything you said, and I think like hopefully people are leaving this feeling inspired and empowered, and and also like feel seen, because you guys both made such a great point about like change starts within you, and everyone has the power to influence that and model that. So thank you. That I feel like is a really great way to end this conversation, and hopefully people are as inspired as I am. And thank you both for all the work that you do as well every day. I think it's so important to have people like leaders like you that are helping shift and create the change in our industry and in our world.
Thank you so much for moderating. Really appreciate it. You had some really insightful questions that allowed us to answer pretty in depth. And also, again, thanks a lot, Tiffany, for joining on this webinar. I really appreciate your different perspective and your different background to me, because again, I think it's really important to give people that are passionate about sustainability but don't have the opportunity to integrate it into their careers an opportunity to do so. And that's why one of the reasons I was so passionate about sprouting seeds of change. So thanks to you both.
Thank you. This was amazing. I hope we can have more convos like this in the future, Elsa. And thank you for having us, and thank you for moderating, Smiely.
Absolutely. I do want to quickly go into we have one question that came in, but if anyone else has questions, feel free to send them in the chat now. I'm wondering if you could just even raise your hand. I'm not sure if that's an option, but definitely put them in the chat. But one question that came in was, any thoughts of developing a circular economy toolkit for productions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an incredibly important potential. There is an organization that is trying to work on something like that. Again, everything is so slow and hard to get things through. But yeah, it's an incredibly important action to take. Like I think that some productions, like I said at the beginning of this chat, that are some productions that mostly film in studio are kind of able to integrate those circular economy practices a little bit more because they have the storage space in the room to keep a lot of their materials and their sets, that kind of stuff. So perhaps learning from these productions and being able to model after them would be a really impactful action to take. But yeah, in terms of reducing waste, I think it's incredibly important. So we're pushing on many different fronts.
Yeah, I also want to give a little shout out to and Anne-Marie just put it in the chat. Like Ontario Creates has the Ontario Green Screen Initiative, and then in BC there's the Real Green Initiative, both of which have circular economy toolkits that are available. Obviously it's like very region based, so you know, I think CBC's had a lot of you know, sort of been able to collaborate nationally and with all the different film commissions and initiatives. So hopefully there's more national initiatives. But if you are residing in like Metro Vancouver, British Columbia, or in Ontario, there are some resources that are available and vendors that can help support you with minimizing that's like set waste and also like food waste and stuff. So yeah. Oh, look, there's links in the chat. So yeah, there are. I just want to say some toolkits, and I've had the privilege in helping develop some of those as well over the years, and a lot more to come. Like Elsa said, it's a little slow, but I think with industry collaboration and all the people that are on the ground that can provide feedback and share sort of what is needed, I think that really helps as well with those that are in those leadership positions to like help execute them. I would say, probably, right? Any other
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, so yes,
Sorry, I was just gonna say thank you so much, Anne Mary, for putting those links in the chat. That's super helpful. I appreciate that a lot.
anybody else? I think we have like a couple minutes if any last chance for questions. I'm going through the chat now. But if not, I think we're able to give people a few minutes back. But also, did we want to have a closing? Anna?
I think looks like we're all good in questions. Maybe it was all answered in this talk. It was super informative and really encouraging. I want to thank you, Elsa and Tiffany and Smiley, for your time. Thanks to everyone who joined today. I hope we can all be, working towards this better, greener future together. Don't forget, be sure to catch CBC's Seeds of Change. I'll put it once again in the chat. A free and virtual event to celebrate climate action in the media industry. And also, don't forget to follow us on social media at GEMS Vancouver to stay in the loop about upcoming events and opportunities. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
So.